And welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast. My name is Gary Lafferty, your host, and today I couldn't be more pleased to have our special guest, Michelle Berube, and I'll get her to introduce herself in a minute. But this podcast is about bringing tech leaders from all across the globe to share their insights, their expertise, and their story for all of us to take advantage of. So as said, I am super excited to have this week's guest, Michelle Berube from the Catalyst Group. And without further ado, Michelle, why don't I just hand it over to you? And can I ask you to give us a little snippet about where you came from, how you got into tech, and where you got to today?
All right. Well, I can do that. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I've been on a very long tech journey. I applied for my first job way back when over Monster.com and got into a small company which actually grew and has been sold, but it was called a CLEC, a competitive local exchange carrier, and had this amazing mentor who took a chance on me. I was, maybe 21 at the time, and really found my niche in understanding how to order products and services, and got into helping customers and really found a passion for being able to overcome problems all of the time and fix them and keep the customer informed, and went through my career as a project manager and a senior project manager and then to a director and to a vice president and a managing partner. But my whole life was pretty much in corporate America, and I had this team that I worked with. And it's funny how, the industry seems very big, but it's pretty small, and you run into the same people over and over again. I had a boss that I stayed with, and he was on the sales side, I was on the operations side, and we just became this amazing team. And we would joke along the way at different companies that we would be at together and say, why aren't we doing this on our own? Why are we in corporate America, which, time and time again gets greedy and less go back to the biggest asset, which is your people, right? They're keeping you in business.
Absolutely.
So we really wanted to do more and more, and the joke. And during COVID, he moved on from the organization that we were with, that we had literally built our business practice. They brought us in to build that practice. They Tim in, one of our managing partners, and he brought me in, and we built the business from the ground up. He exited the business, and I was still there plugging along, and there were a lot of changes, acquisitions going on. So the landscape that we built was evolving, and the players were evolving, and he said, I'm ready. I'm going to do this on my own. I have another partner, and I want you to come in and lead our customer success organization and client experience, and I want you to build this from the ground up the way you did before. And that evolved into me becoming a managing partner as well. And we really we wanted to give back to the people that worked with us. We wanted to do it different. We didn't want to have people at the top being the only ones who are ever well compensated. So there was this vision, like, we know what we do and we know how well we do it. Let's do it on our own. And I will tell you that you learn a lot. What you thought you knew and what you didn't know, you find out real quick. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the traditional story, building up your career in corporate America, working hard, doing the very best so you can climb that corporate ladder. But there's this itch, isn't there? There's always an itch and go, there is something better than this. There's got to be something better than this. And then to finally have that opportunity to take it because you see a different vision. And we're going to talk about that vision a little bit down the line, and and how you're different, because when we were talking offline and off camera, there's a fascinating story behind that, which I can't wait to get into with you. But please, I'm curious, can you please share with us what was the main draw to go from corporate America, the safety of corporate America, although all the bits that you didn't enjoy, the safety of corporate America, to the unsafe, scary world of entrepreneurship. What was that draw for you?
Being able to do everything the way we want to do it, right? Corporate America, you're always tied to a process. And when you're tied to these very stringent processes, I feel that you lose the ability to do the right thing at times, or to do what's best or fastest or most efficient, because you're stuck inside of a box. And for us, it was saying, okay, well, this is something we know. This is something many companies do, right? IT consulting. We want to do it our way. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be rigid and follow the way it's always been done. That gives us the flexibility to be able to say, we want to try something totally different and see if it works. Also, it was about the people. Family first. That's one of our big drivers. But being able to come into something and saying, hey, you don't ever really, if you're doing your job and you're doing it well and giving us 100%, the rest is flexible. And that's, we do that with our staff. And of course, the prospect of taking a chance on something. Like, would I look back for the rest of my life and say, I wish I had just tried? Whether it succeeds or fails, having that question, I had to try. And I think, a lot of people at the end of the day, you get scared. You're jumping off a cliff. You are venturing into a realm of the unknown, right?
Yes.
It is a big safety net to be in corporate America. And
Absolutely.
now to say, I'm gonna jump out of that plane and I'm gonna do it.
And then and good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting, and I think the safety net's a good thing. It really is for certain people, and we need people in corporate America to be on the salary, to be on their, in their jobs and in their roles. We need people like that as entrepreneurs. But there's a different sector of people who thrive upon that thrill. And that thrill and excitement of being the entrepreneur, the scariness of it, thrills and scared. We were talking like what we said off camera earlier about jumping out an aeroplane. There's a thrill to it, and it's also quite scary, right? But it's still one process. It's jumping out of the aeroplane. Entrepreneurship, I see, is exactly the same.
And I think it's, it's very interesting how you evolve as a person, right? Corporate America, you're spending their money, right? It's not necessarily your money. Oh, I can expense it. I can do this. You think, and you have to think much differently when it's now your money that you're investing. And I think you put in a lot more heart in everything that you do because of that, because you're saying, I don't want this to fail. This can't fail.
Yes.
So everything that you do, you're doing it at a much more elevated level. You're working until midnight at night, where corporate America, you might be like, no, I'm done at 5, or I'm not coming in on a Saturday, but that changes.
Yes, it does. It certainly does. And whether you're bootstrapped like I was when I built up my company, or whether you're funded, it is now your check. It is now your bank account. It is now your responsibility for what goes in and what goes out, and look at after those expenses to make sure that you can afford cash flow, and you can afford the growth, and you can afford the facilitation to your clients. They become important things now, as opposed to the hours that I must put these hours in, or I must do this particular role. We're going to talk about multiple hats a little bit later on, because that's another fascinating thing when we talk about entrepreneurship. But I want to slightly dial back a little bit, because what you mentioned something there, which is something very close to my heart when I was building up my company, was to look outside of what your industry does. Because every industry that we've ever come across tends to do what I call the Me Tooism of industry, which is, well, this is the way this is the way a lawyer builds a business, so we all do it that way. This is the way a tech company builds a business, so we all do it that way. Yet, very few people tend to look outside of an industry and say, well, what are they doing for success? And I'll give you an example. When I was running my business, I looked at companies from legal firms to tire shops. And I looked at and see what they were actually doing to look after their clients and client acquisition, client retention, and processes, and then brought that into my business, just little parts of it. And when you start looking outside, you actually start seeing some really nice golden shiny nuggets that other people are doing. That are actually, you wonder why we're not doing it in that industry, right? So when you said that, we can look outside. We have the flexibility. We don't have to be that corporately rigid way of doing things. You know, I
Right.
find that really fascinating. Could you give us an example of that, where you've looked outside of your industry? You know, as an example, and how it's actually worked out for you.
Absolutely, and I don't know where we came up with this. So the one thing, just give you a little background. Our marketing person, we really go the extra mile with our marketing and making sure, you know, after COVID, everything changed, right? Everything seems to be web-based, Zoom calls. We're not out in front of people anymore. So learning those algorithms, learning how to engage your follower on LinkedIn, for example. So she really love our marketing person. She also wears 9,000 hats with the rest of us that we'll get into later, but she found a pizza cast. So a pizza cast is basically you want people to join your educational call, and we partnered with Domino's, and I don't know that we've truly partnered with them, but we utilize Domino's. And for anyone who is registered to listen to our webinar, during the webinar, we deliver a pizza for them. And we call it a pizza cast, right?
Yes.
Just a way to say, hey, thank you for joining. Maybe you just did it for the pizza. But it's as a new startup, you need to be getting your brand out there. Well, how many webinars do you get invited to in a week? Tons, I would assume.
Yeah, tons.
So let's make it a little bit more enjoyable. It's just something easy. We do them during lunchtime. And the feedback and the engagement that we're getting is amazing compared to when we weren't offering something else, like anything in return. So
Yeah.
it's a small
If you're just doing the normal stuff, what other people are doing, then you just come across like a commodity like everybody else. You're just one of the same like everybody else. And, you know, I absolutely love that. For someone who has built their businesses on doing webinars and presentations and things like that, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to steal it from you. I love that idea. I'm going to start doing some pizza casts or something similar to that.
Yeah.
But what a great idea. How we can do it just gives you another way of doing joint ventures, doing, you know, associated partnerships with people, marketing partnerships with people. That's beneficial to both, you know, and the fact that other people within your industry are probably looking at you and thinking, why are they doing that? Well, all the time they're thinking, why are you doing that? You're picking up the goodwill, you're picking up the loyalty, you're picking up the clients, you know? And that's a great word. I love that story. I love that. So, yeah, guys, anyone's listening, watch out for these pizza casts that are coming. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. So, for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't heard of the Catalyst Group, why don't we spend some time talking about that now? So, because obviously, now you're a co-founder you're a managing partner of it. It's now your baby as well. I know you were in from the beginning before it actually started. But tell us, what is it that you guys do? What is the who do you serve? And what is the problems that you solve for your clients?
So we are an IT consulting firm, and we do everything from mobility management to IT security. That's putting in also your network. We're helping with hardware, and we also do what's called managed services. It's where we'll actually act as an extension of an organization's IT staff. So anything across the gamut we can provide help with. Licensing, right? And I'm just kind of giving you examples. A lot of companies out there, when you have employees, you're continually buying licenses, right? And now you have to manage them, and they all have a different renewal date. So we have partners that we utilize that have an app for that now, and everything that you have from a licensing perspective is under one umbrella. So it's not just we're bringing in fiber networks to customers. We do that all the time. There's so many different services, from software as a service to unified communications to cloud. We pretty much have expertise in all of it, and the majority of our staff is built on 20 plus years of experience in the industry.
Right.
Who do we target? We really look for mid to large enterprise customers. However, we have a lot of small customers, you know, mom and pop shops, one location customers. So, you know, as a startup, yes, you're going to have an ideal customer base and really who you want to target. But on the other side of that, you're also building your brand. So for us, if you have a problem and we can help you solve the problem, that's our target client at this point. I forget what else you asked me, so you're gonna have to go over those.
The main problems that your product and service solves for your clients.
The main products and services.
The main problems that you solve or help solve.
Oh gosh, we're solving networking problems to the point where your network, your carrier network, you don't have enough bandwidth. All of your locations aren't able to communicate with one another. Security is actually huge right now, and a lot of customers don't realize that. You really need to be looking at your insurance policy that you have to look and see what does your insurance require you to be able to insure, if you had a claim, you were hacked into, whatever that may be, ransomware. Are you compliant for them to actually pay out your claim? We do training for that, training modules for staff where they'll actually go in and do the security training or any type of compliance training that you need. Mobility. Mobility is another huge one, and I know we talked about this offline. We have anything from mobility management, where you're potentially changing providers and having it under, maybe it's AT&T and Verizon, and you want that under one management platform. You can do that, but that comes with a lot of changes where you're changing carriers, there's disruption to your end users, or you might just want to say, savings, right? We need to look at our budget, or our IT spend is way too big. We need to bring this down. And I think that's a huge area as well that we support. As I said, with the mobility, we have exclusive partners that we work with that just manage your bill. No changes. There's no changes to your provider, anything, but the carriers don't tell you that they offer something, and they're called unpublished rates. But you can't get them because you don't know about them, but they're there for you. So we work with other providers to help with this along the way.
And I think when we were talking offline, you can literally save thousands of dollars, can't you, just by knowing what you don't know, right?
Yes.
Like you just said, from the carriers.
Yep, we're working with a client now that we're saving $7,000 a month. That's that's an additional staff member. That's funding right there for another project. And again, you're not changing anything. This is just a billing. Someone wrote an algorithm that reviews your bill for you every single month and throughout the month, and manages your plans for you, so you're getting the best bang for your buck.
Absolutely. And I think you just cover all three areas. What do most businesses need, or what do most businesses want? They want to make money, they want to save money, and they want to be compliant. And the fact that you're able to touch all three and help them do all three, I think it's an absolute fantastic thing. But I'm going to slightly divert here and be like the devil's advocate, because this is the thing about entrepreneurship. You can have the best product, the best service, but you've got to get yourself out there. And if you're not getting yourself out there, you become the world's best kept secret. And it does, when you've got the best offering there, if no one knows about you, then both parties are suffering. They're suffering because they're not getting what you can offer. You're suffering because you're not closing the deals. Let's talk about challenges of building this businesses then, And one of the things we talked about before was the difficulty to build trust. There's so much out there. Everyone's getting bombarded with these AI Autobot marketing messages, and they can't work out which one they can actually speak to, so they ignore everything. What are you actually guys doing there to make sure, to raise above the noise, to raise above the sea of sameness of everybody else?
So you bring up a very good point. And how do you get your name out there and your brand out there without shortchanging your brand? Right?
Absolutely.
And we talked about this previously, but everyone says, what's in it for them? What are they selling me? Right? Oh, what's the hook? Right? I think when I spoke to you, I said, what's the hook? What do you know?
Right, yes.
It's getting people, I can probably say every gets multiple emails a day of someone trying to sell them something. So we try different things, but one of the things that I love that we do is we've kind of gone back to our old school roots, right? AI is taking over. It's not a human. We're human. we need human interaction. We've gone now to sending handwritten letters. One thing that we do for all of our customers is we always send a handwritten thank you note. Doesn't matter if we have to write 70 of them, we're writing it because it shows who we are. It shows that personal touch that we care. The pizza casts that I told you about, doing those. Another thing that we do is we partner with partners that have our same core beliefs and our same company values. And I think the other thing that we do to get ahead of this is we allow everybody to be creative. So no idea is a stupid idea, because what happens is usually with our team, well, let's try it this way. And that one statement evolves into our next adventure, right? So, oh, this is great. And that's how the pizza cast evolved. What if we send them something? Well, a gift card's not fun, and we want to do this at lunch. Well, what if we do pizza? So it's giving everyone a voice, right? Your people are your assets. Allow them to be creative. If you've hired someone to do sales, you hired them for a reason. Let them spread their wings. And that's another thing that we've done, is really being creative also in the things that we can offer. And being a young startup, someone will say, oh, well, this is our problem. And we're like, well, we can solve that. Well, then let's make this a new product offering, right? And you don't want to go crazy with that, but you want to say, well, there's a need for this. Why didn't we think of this? So I think, it's just a lot of trial and error now too, because you want to set yourself apart. You need to be different. Speaking with you on a podcast, something totally different. So I don't know if that entirely answered your question.
Well, no, I think it does, because, you actually gave so many great things in there, and I'm going to just touch on a few of those. First one was the handwritten notes. I was doing handwritten notes in the 80s, right? In the 80s and the 90s. The handwritten notes was the thing to do. You made sure, and most businesses were doing those things. And then email took over. Computerization took over, and you didn't need to post anything anymore, and it just got more expensive to do, so people stopped doing it. And it's lovely to hear 40 odd years later, it's back again, and people are actually doing it because people appreciate it. When was the last time you threw away a note that came through the post that's got someone's handwriting on it? It goes on a wall, it gets pinned up on a board, it gets somewhere. Very rarely does it get thrown away. And there's one thing that kind of gets my goat on it, and I can see why they're doing it, is now you have these AI robots trained to do handwriting and writing 1,000 notes in a minute. And then it's mass produced, and most people know that, and it's just different. So it's great to hear that again, and what you're doing. And you mentioned also company values, that you're mixing and partnering with people who have similar company values. So that's where I'm going to touch on now, is company values. When we were talking before and talking off camera, you said three things. I'm going to touch on all those three things. We'll do one at a time. When it comes down to company values, which I absolutely love. The first one is do the right thing. When we were speaking off camera, you said we totally believe in just doing the right thing, and your ability as a small startup to be able to do that right thing as opposed to just doing what's needed, to get by. Let's talk about that. Can you talk us a little bit about what do you mean when you say we follow the do the right thing as a value? Do the right thing is one of probably our biggest, right? And we must say it all the time. Well, it was the right thing to do. Continually, you'll hear our entire staff say that. But doing the right thing is being the best representation of our company that we can be. And that doesn't just stay at, 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are. You're displaying that when you're still representing the brand. I'll give you an example of something that we just rolled out to the team. 100 acts of kindness. Where as a team, each week on our team call, we're going to talk about something that we did that didn't cost money, whether it was at work or at home, to brighten someone's day, to do the right thing. So with that, though, doing the right thing means that there's no ego in that. There's no selfishness in that. You're not presenting a solution to a customer because a certain provider has bonus dollars or spiff dollars they're going to pay you.
It's hearing what the customer has to say, listening to their problem and solving the problem. And in that means sometimes we might not win the deal. We might actually say, you've got a better scenario, or this is a better option, and we think you need to stay there. And it's giving that wholehearted advice and it's walking away feeling good about you and what you did. And I think
Love it.
when you're living that, what comes back to you is tenfold. And it's just doing the right thing, morally, ethically, and what's right for the whole versus singularly.
Yeah, and I think that leads me into number 2, which is teamwork, because obviously to do the right thing, it can't be an individual. It's got to be a teamwork-led thing, a teamwork belief thing from doing that. So let's talk about teamwork. I love the way that you bring your teams together, and as you said, no idea is a silly idea, and sometimes, and this is the beauty, because then you can have a laugh about some really wacky ideas, but some of them turn out really well. So let's talk about teamwork, because I know you and I were talking about teamwork before. What has it been like to retain a really good team?
It's awesome. So your team is your family, right? We're spending more time with our team throughout a week than we typically are at home. So you need to be able to trust that team. You need to be able to empower that team, right? You're not a good leader if you're micromanaging. There's 12 different ways to get a job done from point A to point B, and I might do it differently than you do it, right? And we might both have the same title or job responsibilities, but you and I do the work completely differently. I think continually, right, everybody's good at certain things, and maybe people aren't as good at certain things, but it's finding that thing that a specific team member is good at and expanding on that. Not beating them down that you're not good at this, finding more ways to expand what they are good at. And our team, like, we're fun. We have a lot of fun at work, and we have fun watching it evolve and grow. And everybody knows that they're a part of that. And that's something that I think we do really well, is saying no player is any less important than the other in every project or customer that we're working on.
And I think that's a very important thing when it comes down to teamwork. No one is more important. If you're sitting around a table, looking for ideas, looking for things that you can do to the benefit of your clients, the benefit of the company, then everyone should be equal. It doesn't mean everything's going to be implemented, but everybody's input is equal. And then you can then all talk on the same level and go, yeah, I like that, I don't like that. How about this? How about that? And have that curiosity come. Whereas if you try and pigeonhole someone and go, well, that's not really your department, you can't have a voice in that, then you're losing out on so much value there that they can bring to the table.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think that's a lovely way of you guys being different for your company values. And the third one is giving back. Again, we talked about this before. About how you gave back. I'm pretty sure you gave us a nice example of how you gave. Let's talk about that giving back and how come that is a good company value for you.
I think because it teaches all of us how to fill your own cup. Right? Walking away every day, there's hard days, and there's days where you're just like, oh, did I make the right decision? This was a long day. And then you reflect on the day and you're like, wow, that feels good. We did all the right things today. We're being demonstrating who we are as a company and what we represent. Right? We just did it, and we're proving it day in and day out across the whole team. Giving back, I mean, everybody relates giving back to money, and that's just a little tiny fraction. We try to be involved with the community. We'll as a team collectively, Christmas time, for example, we'll donate to Moms on a Mission, so they're local to some of us, but they bring Christmas to families that can't afford it. But it's giving back across the board. It's just being a decent human being.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think it really is. We tend to put our corporate hats on, and we think this is what we do, and we become what we do. Whereas in reality, we're still human, and there are other humans, and sometimes we just got to look at it and say, no matter where we are on our corporate journey, on our entrepreneurial journey, or the success or non-success or whatever the case may be, we're still human and we can still learn from that. But more importantly, there are others who aren't as blessed as us. You know, no matter how much of a hard day we've had, there are others who have a much, much harder day. You know, at least we're in a position where we can have those hard days, whereas others don't necessarily have that choice, you know, so I absolutely love that.
And I think I have, I'll give you a work example. So we have a customer that is in the field of doing the right thing and life-saving measures, a smaller company, and they needed to needed to bring in some internet circuits, and we had found some solutions for them, and they said, well, I'd like to use this provider. And we said, okay, we can help you with that provider, and knowing full well that if we utilize that provider, we wouldn't get paid. But going to do the right thing, we did it anyway. Right? Because they were doing a little bit larger of a project with us, and we said, well, if we're doing one, we might as well just manage the rest of it for them because it's the right thing to do. And now, the customer has seen how this other provider is pretty much a bear, and he's like, I don't know what we would have done if you guys didn't help, and thank you so much, and we're not renewing this contract a couple years from now. We're going to talk to you first. So just that little simple act has already brought it back, right? The customer is already saying, hey, I trust you. I'm going to come to you when I need to renew this, or not renew in their case. But it's little things like that. And
it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, building trust. You know, it's difficult enough to build trust out there, and if you keep trying to do it the traditional ways, it's just not going to work. Right. It's going to be a much harder slog. Whereas if you just step back a little bit and think of a long-term game rather than short-term game when it comes to business, then you can build so much bigger trust from there. And as I said, you would just been talking about your team and how it's got to be all bought in, and the mission and the giving back and being different is a team thing. It's a team thing that you all go together, which brings me to the wearing of multiple hats. Because just because, and you've mentioned it earlier, just because you've got a name and just because you've got a title doesn't mean that's what you're sticking to. Every business needs to wear, everybody in a small business has to, or any business has to, up to a small or medium size, has to wear multiple hats. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know you wear multiple hats, so help us explain what you mean by multiple hats.
All right, so multiple hats going into this meant, well, my singular hat would have been client experience, right? But when you're starting a startup, or even, just jumping in after the fact, right, you're finding out that you can't just jump right into your normal job. There's other areas of the business that you can't overlook. Health insurance, for example. I will tell you that I didn't even want to know about health insurance, but having that for our team was huge, right? And you want good benefits. This is our work family. They need to be taken care of. All of us do. Our children do. So, that was a hat that I was tasked with, was, okay, you're going to go out and you're going to be the leader of finding health insurance and health benefits. And you learn so much. That's one of the ones. I do commissioning for our partners and for our team, and validating all those commissions and, fighting the disputes. In corporate America, that was done by a different team, and health insurance was done by HR, and that's another hat, right? HR. You need to have an employee handbook. You need to know the laws. You need to follow through. Then there's attorneys, because you need partnerships agreements. So it keeps going and going and going and going. And I would say the first year is really going to wipe you out. Just being for restless nights and working late and doing everything you can to get everything in place. Payroll companies, right? Someone else should handle that, right? But I would say after that first year, once that portion settles and you've got all the things that you never really thought about before that are now like, oh, I need to think about this, then you get into a rhythm. And then, you can breathe again. But our whole staff across the board wears multiple hats. I got a call Friday night from a customer that was having a problem. So I had to call, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not home right now. I'm not in front of my computer. I call one of my peers, hey, one of the other managing partners, I'm like, can you check on this real quick? Sure, I'm not home yet, but I'll be home in 10 minutes. We all jump in, and that's part of being a team, right? And it all kind of morphs. Everybody's helping everybody, and that's not my job. That's not my pay grade. That's not.
And that's where you need cohesion, isn't it, Michelle? You need cohesion within the team. You don't really need team members to, like you just say, well, this is the hat I've got. This is the hat I came in with, and this is the only hat I'm going to deal with. And that's not great for growing a company. And it's, when it comes to team, trying to retain a really good team is very, very hard. But sometimes you do have to, on the other side of the coin, you sometimes have to let people go. And I know you don't have to do that, but you've got to let go of someone who isn't necessarily in it for the team. If they're in for the glory for themselves and things like that, let's do them a favor and let them go. They can go to a bigger company where that's their role and that's the only thing they do. But if those people, if any of you guys are listening and you're in a small team or you're in a small startup, as Michelle said, it's a toughie, but the rewards at the end is what is worthwhile. That's what you're going to go for, and it's for sake of another term, it's for the good of all men, the good of all people in your team, in your family, to get to where you want to get to together.
Right.
So you're crossing that line. Well, I say crossing the line. In business, there's never a line that you cross a finish line. It just continues going, doesn't it?
Right.
Always
it's like
continues
climbing Mount
going.
Everest,
Yeah, absolutely. Just another summit. And I've talked about this before. Living in Breckenridge in the Colorado, there's always a summit and a full summit and then another full summit. And you just have to keep on going before you get there. And then when you reach the summit, you go, oh, look, there's another one. I'm going to do that next week. There's another summit to go. And entrepreneurship is very, very much like that. Well, Michelle, this has been absolutely fabulous. We've had, it's been an absolute blast talking to you. And, again, I can't believe where the time has gone. But listen, I've got one final question for you. And it's a little bit of a loaded question. It's something I like to ask everybody at the end of their interview. And I can't, different from most people. But for you, I think the loaded question would be this. Coming from corporate America, building up your career in corporate America, then to make the shift into entrepreneurship and the managing partner of a firm, and as you say, having to learn so much so quickly, because it has to be done. You can't put it off to next week. It's got to be done, right? Whereas before you can just say, oh, I'll get round to doing that. Whereas in entrepreneurship, it's now or never. You've got to get it done. I suppose my question to you would be, if you had to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that advice be, knowing what you know now?
I think the piece of advice would be don't sweat the small stuff, because you're going to be okay, right? Like, enjoy, be present, enjoy the journey, because it truly is a journey, and believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely wonderful. Don't sweat the small stuff. It is a journey. As much as we talk about destinations, you're on a journey. If you imagine any car ride, and you're miserable in the whole car ride until you got to the end, you've just ruined half your vacation, haven't you? Same in business. You've got to enjoy the journey. You've got to enjoy the ride.
Right. And it's okay to fail, right? Because each failure is just a lesson. You're going to learn from it. So
absolutely. It's a life lesson. I'm a great believer in failing and failing fast and just getting back up again.
Right.
It's not really a failure. It's just
again. Yeah, don't make that mistake again, right? And we tell our teams this all the time. We have 2 interns, and we're like, listen, you're gonna make a mistake. We expect it. It's how you handle the mistake is what we want to teach you. Don't ever be afraid of making a mistake, because you're gonna learn from it.
Yeah, if you don't learn from those mistakes, then it's not a lesson. So you might as well learn from it, right? And get better from there. Well, Michelle, this has been absolutely wonderful and fascinating. If people want to get hold of you and get to know more about what you do and how you can help them, what's the best way of getting hold of you?
Sure. The best way, I would say, on our website, there's links to get a hold of us. It's www.thectg.net. But the simplest way is send us an email. It's hello@thectg.net.
Brilliant. Well, I'll make sure I put those links in the bottom of the show notes for everyone, so they can get hold of you if they want to. Michelle, as I said, thank you very much for your time and sharing your insights and your expertise. I'm sure people and the listeners and the subscribers here have got some tremendous nuggets from you. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to partake.
Guys, thank you to you too. You guys have been there. If you have had any, any inspiration, and literally, if Michelle drops so many fantastic insights there, so if you were to pick up one or two of those, good luck on you. Utilize them. It doesn't matter if you just keep listening to stuff. What matters is when you take action on that stuff. And there's some really nice stuff that Michelle shared with us today. So until next time, please make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe, but more importantly, please make sure you share so that we can all benefit from leaders that we have on these podcasts like Michelle, bring everybody up so that we can all succeed more. So until next time, until the next episode, thank you very much for joining us for this. Michelle, thank you again for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. Until next time, guys, all the very best. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.